Hello, and welcome to Cross the Line. I'm your host, Brian Kilman, and joining me today is Matthew Entrikin. Now let's get to our first topic. Chris Davis has gone 0 for 30, 0 for 49, rather, in his last 49 at-bats. What do you think about that, Matt?
Yeah, Chris Davis hasn't had a hit since September of last year. Going 49 hits or going 49 at bats without a hit is not like a point guard missing 20 jump shots in a row. It's not like a quarterback missing 20 passes in a row. It's the mental game of baseball is a whole different arena for a hitter, especially once you get to that level where you're going 10 at bats without a hit, 20 and 30 at bats without a hit, and you just keep on wondering when is going to be the next time I'm going to get a hit. Is it going to be ever? I mean, I'm sure Chris Davis will break out of it eventually, as all great hitters do. But going 0 for 49, that's tough to come back. That is literally a Major League Baseball record. And it's definitely going to be tough for Chris Davis to break out of this slump, much less to get back to the form he used to be in 2015 and 2013 when he led the majors in home runs.
Yeah, and let's talk about the guy whose record he beat, Eugenio Velez. Have you heard of him?
I have not heard of him.
So he had a career 241 batting average in 663 at-bats. Chris Davis right now has 4,674 at-bats. Davis has 100 more home runs than Velez ever had hits. So this is, Chris Davis is, in January of 2016, he signed a 7-year, $161 million contract with the Orioles. So to say that, Velez, who no one's ever heard of, that's the only reason he's in the record books was because he went 0 for 46 without a hit. To say that Chris Davis, who at one point led the league in home runs, now beat him out for that is something really notable. And Velez still holds the record for most hits to start a season, or most at-bats to start a season without a hit, which is he went 0 for 37. And Chris Davis is currently 0 for 28. So if Chris Davis in 3 or 4 more games might break that record too, if he's not careful.
Well, at least we can call him a record breaker. That is a good point, though, that we're not talking about some mediocre, run-of-the-mill baseball player. We're talking about one of the great home run hitters of this age, in Chris Davis, and I think he can find a way to get back to the way he used to be.
Okay, and then let's get to our next topic here. Best NCAA basketball championship team ever.
Here it is for me, Brian. The best college basketball team of all time, 1982-1983, North Carolina Tar Heels, led by Michael Jordan and coached by Dean Smith, one of the greatest all-time coaches who has accumulated one of the most wins in NCAA history. They went 32-2 that season, and they defeated Patrick Ewing, a future NBA Hall of Famer, and his Georgetown team in that championship.
Okay, let me counter that here. Bobby Knight and the 1975-76 Indiana Hoosiers. They finished the season 32-0, last team to ever finish the entire season, including conference championship and NCAA tournament, undefeated. In the preseason of that, before the season started, they played the Soviet Union team that won the FIBA World Championship, and they beat them 94-78. And you want to talk about all-time great coach, Bobby Knight, infamous coach. Everyone knows Bobby Knight's name. Dean Smith, I'm not going to say he wasn't a great coach, but I just don't think he's on par with Bobby Knight. And when you look at the roster, it was stacked. Indiana Hoosiers, Scott May, Quinn Buckner, and Bobby Wilkerson all went in the top 11 in the next draft. 3 almost top 10 picks.
Listen, Brian, I don't want to take anything away from Bobby Knight, who's a great coach, one of the greats of all time, and that Indiana team, but you're wrong, and here's why. North Carolina had 12 future NBA draft picks on that roster. Indiana had only 7. And there's a big difference between the road to the championship for Indiana and the road to the championship for North Carolina. Like I said earlier, North Carolina took down Patrick Ewing and his Georgetown team. Who did Indiana take down in that championship game? Ricky Green's Michigan. Who's Ricky Green, Brian? You heard of Ricky Green?
I've never heard of Ricky Green, but if you look at the other teams they beat during that time, to start the season they played the defending champion UCLA. They went through UCLA again in the tournament, and they just blew them out of the water. They beat UCLA in the regular season by 20. They beat UCLA in the tournament by 9. Wasn't even close.
Those are different teams. It's not what we're talking about, Brian. And even if you take away the stats, and the players, and the coach, a new generation team is always going to be better than an old generation team. A 2000 champion is not going to lose to a 70s champion, okay? Every year, players are getting bigger, faster, smarter, and stronger. And I don't think that North Carolina, led by the greatest, well, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan, I don't think there's any way one of the most clutch players of all time, Michael Jordan, can lose to Indiana.
Well, here's the thing. If you want to talk about the greatest player ever, Michael Jordan in North Carolina, that's just to say that the greatest player ever led a team. Well, if you look back at the players on Indiana, there are some good picks in that, some good players on that team. But they didn't have Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan was phenomenal.
Tell me what those Indiana players did in the NBA.
That's not a team. That's not the team. That's Michael Jordan.
We all know that if you got a great player on your team, that can mean everything. LeBron made the Cavs great because he was there. You got that one player, that can mean everything. Not only did they have Michael Jordan, they had James Worthy too, one of the other basketball greats of our time.
Okay, well, we'll agree to disagree on that one. The next topic we're going to look at is what NBA team is set to make a run in the NBA playoffs.
Here's my bold prediction for this one. Some might call it too bold, but here it is. The Orlando Magic, one of the most underrated teams in the NBA, led by one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and Nikola Savic. I don't think I pronounced that right, but Nikola Vucevic is averaging a double-double this season, 20 points, 12 rebounds, which is better than Nikola Jokic, DeMarcus Cousins, DeAndre Jordan. And the Magic have 5 players. Their entire starting 5 is averaging averaging double-digit points this season.
Let me make a counter to that. I really think, this is not as bold as a prediction, but the Philadelphia 76ers are going to win the East. That's what I'll tell you right now. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, that team's stacked. That team's absolutely stacked. Why are they the 3rd seed? They've really blown some games. If they can pull it together in the playoffs, I believe they can. Everyone's healthy now. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, they're all healthy now. Not to mention J.J. Redick can shoot the 3 really well. He's shooting 40% on the season. And we look at the fact that from last year's team, the 76ers easily could have won the East last year. And this year they added Jimmy Butler. So I just don't think that I don't think the Magic can beat a team like the 76ers.
You know what, Brian? Here's where you're wrong. Orlando Magic have all the capability to beat a team like the 76ers. In the regular season, they've beat Houston twice, Boston 3 times, Philadelphia twice, Milwaukee once. Not only that, Philadelphia, here's the problem with Philadelphia. They're one of the most inconsistent teams in the NBA. They may be the 3 seed in the NBA this season, but they're not the 3 seed in the playoffs. And what I mean by that is that they do not play well against great teams. They have a 19-20 record this season against teams with an above 500 record, and I do not think they can get it done in the playoffs, especially when you have the inconsistencies that the 76ers do. People like Ben Simmons. They've had great seasons before, and before they've they've disappointed.
Here's the thing when you talk about Ben Simmons, he's just a fundamentalist. He has not taken a three in the NBA.
Because he can't shoot a three.
He has not taken a three in the NBA because he likes to take it inside. And all these teams, especially if you talk about the Warriors, you talk about the Bucks, they're shooting 13, 14 threes, or they're making 13 or 14 threes a game. They're high-scoring teams. But if you look at the 76ers, when they played the Bucks, they beat them. Even though Giannis put up 52 points. You know, Joel Embiid was no slump in that, or no slouch in that game. And when you look at the Celtics as well, who are the 4th seed in the East, they're injured. Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, they don't have enough depth on their team to face up against the 76ers, who have the depth that the other teams lack.
The Celtics have the depth. They just don't have a certain, they don't have the high stock players that the 76ers have. But when one player fails to do what he usually do, somebody else on the Celtics can pick up the slack. That's part of the Celtics. They have the depth on the bench, and the 76ers are full of inconsistencies.
Well, the Celtics aren't healthy enough. But our last topic today is, can the Red Sox, what's up with the Red Sox? Can they pull it together?
Yeah, I think the Red Sox are going to be fine. And, I think it's just the Boston thing, slow starts. We were all freaking out about the Patriots last year when they started off the season 1-2, losing to Jacksonville. And who was the other? It was another team that didn't make the playoffs. And as we all know, Patriots ultimately ended up winning the Super Bowl. The Red Sox have way too talented a team to not make the playoffs, especially when they have a starting rotation like they do, and position players like they do.
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to the Red Sox, you look at some of their starting rotation. So far this season, the starters have given up 16 home runs in 46 innings. That translates to a 9.13 ERA. And you look, that's the next worst ERA for starters in the NL is the Cubs, around a 6.5 ERA. So the Red Sox starting rotation has just sucked this year. Chris Sale, who used to be one of the best pitchers in the league, might still be one of the best pitchers in the league, has not started off this season good. ERA of 8, and his fastball has gone down from about 95 to 91 this season.
Well, let me explain something to you, Brian, about playing in the Major League Baseball, is that travel is the only constant. And from opening day of the MLB season, they had to fly from Florida to Washington, down to California, to Arizona, and now they go all the way back to Boston. That is not easy. Traveling thousands and thousands of miles is not easy for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're in the MLB getting high-class treatment. It is not easy to be on the road for so long in the beginning of the season.
I disagree. Look at the Mariners. They went to Japan for their first game, and they're one of the best teams, best records in the league right now. And you talked about the MLB players are getting treated to these fine amenities, 5-star hotels. They're not flying, like economy class with Southwest or whatever. They have their own jet. So they can sleep on the plane. They can do whatever they want. They should be able, they're professional athletes. They should be able to show up when it comes down to the game.
That is easier said than done. It is not easy to travel like that, especially in the beginning of the season when you're not in a flow yet, when you haven't gotten things rolling, and everything about baseball is about momentum. And when you do, it is so hard to start everything, to start fast, to start hot in baseball, and traveling tens of thousands of miles is not an easy thing to do for anyone. It doesn't matter how well you get treated.
I feel like the team's just out of it. Brock Holt's on the 10-day injured list because his 2-year-old poked him in the eye. I feel, like that's not even a baseball injury.
Nobody cares about Brock Holt.
I disagree. But the thing is, when you look at it, if you look at the Red Sox team that won the World Series in 2013, in 2014, that same Red Sox team lost 91 games. And the Red Sox this year have the worst start since the 1998 Marlins. And you know how many games the Marlins lost? 108 games. 108 games.
It's
So
neither here nor there.
that's the worst record since the Marlins.
Okay,
And the Marlins were stripped. The Marlins
There's a
had no
big
one.
difference between the Florida Marlins and the Boston Red Sox, Brian.
They won the World Series. The Marlins won the World Series. Whether or not
The Red
the
Sox
Red
have
Sox,
a former Cy Young winner, a former MVP, Mookie Betts. Their team is loaded with talent. Did the Marlins win the World? Okay, never mind. They did win the World Series in 1997. But anyway, the Marlins and the Red Sox are different teams. The Red Sox are way too good. They have way too much talent to be a non-playoff team.
you know, I just think when it comes down to it, they have the worst run differential in the league, giving up the most runs, 72 runs. And you look at another team in the AL East, Tampa Bay Rays have the league best leading ERA, as well as they're just younger and deeper than the Red Sox. And I don't think the Red Sox can even get in the playoffs this year with Tampa Bay in their division and the rest of the AL not slouching too much either.
We're 12 games in. We're essentially still in preseason, you know. I have confidence in the Red Sox. Too early to talk about the defending champions not making the playoffs.
Well, that's going to do it for us today on Crossing the Line. We'll see you next week.